Hello and welcome to the game design class for Monday, September 14th. I'm going to go ahead and let people into the waiting room, or in from the waiting room, I should say. Hello.
Yo.
Yo.
Hello.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing good.
Yeah, doing pretty good.
Existing. Not so bad.
All right. Well, let me get you, let me put you in attendance here, and then we will get started up. Let's see, Pima. And then we're going to go to attendance. And mark you guys down. Game design. Okay. Let's see. Okay. And update. Okay, cool. Cool beans. All right. Attendance is good. So let me bring up the class website. And let's talk about this stuff. So let's see. Now, Isai, you had a presentation that was going to happen last week, but we postponed it because I thought we were going to have our speaker. Do you have that ready today?
Yeah, I can present today.
Okay. Do you want me to allow you to share your screen so that you can present?
Yeah.
Okay. So sharing screen, all participants. Okay, good. It's all yours to take away and show your presentation.
Cool. Cool. So this is just a presentation on how video games have changed throughout history.
Okay.
Let's see. And yeah, just starting off, first we have arcade games, which was the first era. And
Now, are you trying to share your screen because it's not sharing yet?
oh, it's let me see.
So you got it first. You got to in Zoom. You got to click down here and say that you want to share your.
Oh, I see. Okay. Cool. Can you see that?
Not yet.
One sec. Okay, I think it's saying I have to make changes on my computer and then I have to reset Zoom.
Really?
Yeah, I just have to reset the app really quick. So can I just join back in really fast?
Yeah. So what do you have to do? Log out and log in?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me see.
Okay. Well, thanks for your patience, you guys. And let's see, Eduardo, did you have a presentation ready for today as well?
Not today. I just need to do 2 more slides for it because it's about basically the same thing as he is doing, but it's about a person in a sense.
Oh, okay. So so would you like to do yours on Wednesday?
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Let me try this one more time. Yeah, I had it enable something, so let me share. Let me try.
Okay. Okay, now I can see it.
Okay, sweet. That's good. Cool, yeah. Oh, let me see. How do I hide all this? Uh, I'm not sure how to hide that part. Let me try. Can you guys see yourselves right there?
I can see it.
Okay, cool. Can you see like other people's cameras though, like the actual Zoom application?
Yeah.
I can.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you just have to, when it takes over your screen, you just hit the escape key and then you can see the Zoom
Oh.
application.
Right.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is the just basically a quick presentation on the history of gaming, how certain games have changed. First, there's the arcade era, and so first, yeah, we had that, and when going to arcade rooms with friends, that was popular and it was a very social experience because some arcade games had another person playing right next to you, and going out to the games with friends and to the game rooms with friends was just a fun adventure. And then a little bit after, console systems became more popular, so you can stay at home and play games. And this is where someone who likes to go out and play games turns into like kind of like a gamer. So it's like kind of where that came from. And then looking at more today, um, new gaming systems are made, and everyone tends to have their own and not go out to like other person's house and like sharing their console or whatever. And now today we can buy games online, and most of the time we can preview them before buying them. Versus back when you can, we go to Blockbuster and rent games or whatever, and you just play them pretty much blind without knowing what was going to happen in the game without previewing them. And then eventually multiplayer games take off, and everyone's online meeting people, adding each other online and stuff, and versus when people would explore the game fast, or yeah, versus when people would play at like a friend's house and stuff. And yeah, everyone would just explore the game faster and just had a wider general knowledge of the game that people share. And then a big question is, can the same excitement of experiencing new games and technology from back then carry on to today? And is it the same kind of social experience? Somewhat hard to answer. Yes, because nostalgia from playing old games is itself an excitement. And it's also, yes, because it's social because friends can still play online and talk like on microphones and stuff. And then there's always new things to learn from playing games and stuff. And then also no, because hype can die down from companies just consistently pushing out new products and devices. And there's just nothing like original that when something came out. And then it's the same thing with games too. It's easy to recycle content. And then that also creates unbalanced skill level for more people to play on their own rather than playing with friends and stuff. And let's see. Yeah, this is just a list of things we have today that are just absolutely changed how games are played. And first we have just like general voice communication apps, like what we use, Discord, makes everything like a lot easier. And for games, there's also guides now, which pretty much changes a lot. You're not just going in with the raw experience. There's also live streaming, with it can influence others to play a certain type of game. There's ways, yeah, and there's also ways to cheat in games like a lot more now. And RWT, it's real world trading. So like people actually, instead of like playing the game and just grinding out the game, they actually use their real money to buy in-game currency pretty much. And yeah, there's also a lot of botting now, which can change the fact if someone wants to actually play the game or not. People can lose interest. And then people nowadays, they step back for actually strategy. There's people actually make spreadsheets to actually plan out something for the game. And now there's also tests or private servers, and yeah, and then something that also changes, like anything like real world stuff. Like now, everyone's all indoors and stuff, so everyone's playing the game now, and there's a lot more stuff like that. And then yeah, overall, just the gaming industry grows and more jobs are available. Companies need like more people to work on games and stuff. And then yeah, pretty much like it's, as you can see, basically it's nothing like how it used to be. Like all this stuff you're not just turning on your console and then just like chilling, sitting back. Most people have setups and all that stuff, and it's a lot different than going out to arcade game and stuff. And yeah, this eventually evolves to like a cycle where you think the game can reach like some type of end game. Let's see. Yeah, it's basically the point where players have reached an end game, so they have set their own goals within the game, and people use all the knowledge they've gained from playing to set goals like making high scores of tournaments or stuff like that. And then yeah, I'll just go over a few examples of games that like I've played, and I've noticed that there's a big change and difference that changed from like back then from games that have been around for a while. And these are just some questions to consider. Why have these games remained prominent in the industry? Why have they been around for so long? What makes them a staple? Are they saved by the exciting aspects that players always look for in games, from arcade days to now? Are they saved by a massive player base? Do they have communities that have created their own goals and style of gameplay? Does the list of game changers that we previously looked at that exists today affect the game in any way compared to how it was played years ago? So first, there's good old RuneScape. And let's see. So yeah, it's back in 2007, people were learning from others in game. There's no one used guides or anything like that. There wasn't even an auction house feature, so people were trading like socially a lot, like 100% in game. Like for me, my first time playing this was in a library, so it was pretty fun experience. And nowadays, looking at today, there's a lot of new content that was added. There's like an auction house now, which makes the trading thing a lot less social. And there's many guides now, which is a huge thing. People are they're not running around and learning things on their own. They look at videos to learn, and then people also make like blueprint account builds and stuff like that. And a big thing in the game now is real world trading, and it's always been in the game, but it's really more popular now. And then also botting, and yeah. And a thing about this game too is it makes it really unique because like a player, like someone who's new to games, like it'd be something that like you wouldn't really come to this game. It's revolved like around a fan base that's played when they're like kids or whatever and stuff like that. And that's kind of what makes it its own. Let's see. I'm gonna mention something else about it. Right. Yeah, and then we have WoW, which is it's kind of similar, like with the social aspects and the trading aspects. It's a little bit more popular, and let's see, in 2004, there's a different like retail version. I'm sure like everyone's aware of, but yeah, I'll just talk about the recent like classic version that's kind of been remastered from 2004. And let's see. Yeah, so back in 2004, there's lots of trial and error. People learn from experience. There isn't really any guides, and people are basically all on the same skill level because of that. It's just all raw, natural, organic experience. And then jumping actually launched in 2019, but it's way different than playing now versus then. Just people have planned strategies now. There's a lot of guides, and yeah, just kind of like RuneScape. It's people have spreadsheets, and people do tournaments and actually like speed run, and that's kind of the controversy of the game. People like players of the game now consider is nowadays easy mode compared to how it was back then, pretty much. And yeah, there's also a controversy of players who take the game like kind of hardcore or whatever, and then there's also casual players who just chill and play the game. And I was kind of debating about putting this game in here because it's completely different of the other two games, and it's also a different format, so it's kind of just like a theory slide. Because I don't know, I've heard half the reviews I heard, people review the game as bad. There's no spoilers in here, but yeah, just people reviewed the game as bad, I guess, or half of it was good. But yeah, basically, part one came out on a whole different console, and I think part of what altered the expectations for part two is there's like it came out on a completely different newer console. It took so long for it to come out. Basically, it made people who were anticipating a lot, their expectations it could have probably made them a little bit too high. So I don't know, but I like the game. It was pretty good, and yeah, I like it because it stayed true to its original mechanics and movements in the first one, and yeah, some of the stories, but I don't know. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then let's see. Oh yeah, and that could have So people just because of that, people probably just diminished the thought of making a third one. That's why the worst thing the game company can do is just drag out the thing and make like really bad sequels and ruin the actual original story. But yeah, that's kind of just basically a rundown of how games and just games in general. Just some examples of certain games.
Nice.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Figure out how to
I agree.
stop the screen sharing thing now.
Yeah. I think you just stop screen share. Yeah. All right. Good job, Asai. That was really really interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to like bounce on like bouncing from different games. Like I didn't want to focus it on certain games, but I kind of want to that's why I kind of threw in like the past and how games used to be and stuff like that.
So one of the things that Asai said in his presentation was he talked about how people, once they've mastered a game, then they kind of create games within the game. He talked about spreadsheets and he talked about real world training, stuff like that. It almost sounded to me like playing games nowadays can almost be like a job of sorts, in that, you're talking about spreadsheets, you're talking about training, you're talking about spending real money. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, that's one of the things I actually forgot to mention. It's kind of like it's more of like an objective now for like certain people to turn on the game and actually be motivated to play the game, because you have to have all people feel like in order to get the full experience, you have to have Discord, you have to have all this stuff, all these attributes, and kind of takes away from the raw, natural experience of the game.
So what do you guys think? When you especially play a new game, I mean, what kind of expectations do you have for it? Do you want to just have fun? Do you want to get good enough that you can play competitively? Do you create spreadsheets? What do you guys think?
I always play a game as like just an escape. Like that's always my go-to is just like I want to play like preferably like The Witcher, for example. I love that game because I get to be another person. You know, it's just like some kind of an escape. I just think it's so interesting with the spreadsheet stuff because it's like for games that have been out so long that haven't had like any more iterations that out of boredom and like kind of organically people start to like figure out how to make it fun again and feel new and fresh. So it's like, oh, let's try all these like spreadsheet things and do all this like RW, like just trying to find ways to make it feel fresh again despite how old a game can be. I think it's really interesting, but my go-to is always just a game that I can immerse myself in and just kind of get lost
Yeah, exactly.
in
Right.
the story.
So everybody comes to games for different reasons. Like, you just talked about the escapist quality of
Right.
games, right?
Right.
And what are some of your other the other students? What are some of your reasons for playing games?
Well, I do like to play games on a more competitive level myself. I started off playing like Smash Bros was kind of how I was introduced to the competitive gaming idea. Like, I was the typical best of my friends in high school. And like from there, I found like other hard and or competitive games that I really got into. And even like on the subject of like doing spreadsheets and stuff, um, I do some like speed running for Super Mario 64, a very old game, classic. And there's this like subdivision, called like tasking tool assisted speedrunning, and I have like a spreadsheet for like doing certain challenges and stuff. Pretty fun.
So it makes sense. So it aids in your gameplay, and part of what you enjoy is competing. So that becomes a tool to help you compete.
I've tried competing in tournaments. I don't have very good results in the ones I've been in, but yeah, it's fun.
I was actually gonna add a slide about that just older games. Like I know like people even speedrun just games like The Last of Us and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know there was actually spreadsheets involved with that.
What else?
Okay.
What about some of you other folks? What are some of your motivations for playing games?
Mine is basically just everybody, like, say that a new game comes out and everybody's talking about it, and you get to the point where what, I want to try it out and see what everybody's talking about. That's mainly what I play most of the time. So I'm like, what's this all about?
Like
So
just being part of the conversation.
Yeah. So
Essentially, yeah.
yeah,
Right.
there's definitely the socialization is a big part of it, right?
Right.
Yeah. What else? Some other people have some other motivations for playing games?
It really depends on the game. If it's more of like a sandbox game like Minecraft, I want to be creative. If it's a story-based game, I want to finish that story so no one can spoil it. I'm not going to spoil
Yeah.
anything. Red Dead 2, all over YouTube, they were like teasing bad stuff that happened in that game
Yes.
in the thumbnails.
In the thumbnail, I know.
So I'm like, I got to beat this game now.
Yeah.
Or else. It was that story. That story was amazing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I'm really glad you said that, because I think that's true of all media. Like, I remember Avengers Endgame when that came out, and I'm a big comic book hero fan. For some reason, I didn't watch Avengers Endgame for 6 months, and I managed to avoid spoilers
That's
until
amazing.
I was just reading some random other article that had nothing to do with it, and they talked about, the big spoiler, and I was like, shit, if I just got to see it 6 months ago, right?
Oh my god.
That's a really interesting point. And I think that helps sales, right? Once something comes out, there's a rush on to get get involved in it so that you don't see all the spoilers that immediately come out, right?
Right.
What else? Does anybody else have other reasons? Every reason is valid. I'm just interested in why you guys play games, or maybe you have friends who have varying motivations for playing games. Any other comments?
Maybe just a sort of like when it comes, I play a bunch of different types of games, but when it comes to puzzle games in particular, just to kind of have fun and test myself to see how fast I can go through some of the puzzles. Especially with like physics-based puzzle games, love those. Like Portal. Oh God, what's the other one that I love? Oh, I forgot the name. Quantum Conundrum. There we go.
Okay.
Nice.
So challenge aspect as well keeps you on
Yeah.
your toes. It's like why people do crossword puzzles, for example.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Any other reason you guys play games?
I think I mostly play games for fun, and occasionally to see if I can beat it. Like,
Right. So there's a really wide spectrum of reasons why people play games. Everything from just because you heard about the game, so why not try it, to fun, to escapism, to testing yourself, puzzles and skill, to competitive and even eventually earning money. So there's a whole spectrum. Anything else anybody want to say about why they play games?
I was even just thinking too, like, actually just recently, my friend and I have been playing Borderlands 3, like couch co-op with the split screen. And I was thinking like, that's another reason too, is like just something to do with your friends. You know, it's fun. Like, and that's hard to find even now, especially like I was thinking about in Isai's presentation, it's like that couch co-op experience has kind of gone away with like the introduction of like online gaming. So it's cool to just be able to sit down with your friend and play a game split screen. It's another reason why I like to play.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. I had a friend, I have a friend who moved to New Zealand, and she liked to play board games. And I put one of my board games in Tabletop Simulator, and we were chatting on Facebook, and I said, hey, do you want to play my game? It's in Tabletop Simulator. And she said, okay. And she went and bought the program right then. And then I connected her up to my server. And next thing you knew, we were playing our game, or we were playing my game, which of course was fun, but arguably the most fun thing was just chatting with her.
Yeah,
and
just catching up, right?
right?
Yeah,
So it's kind of like Facebook. It's like a way to reconnect or to
yeah,
connect.
right.
I think that's getting really bigger now. Games are becoming more social. That I've seen more rather than competitive.
Right.
But the competitive parts, I mean, I dig that too. That's cool. Like how people, have that mindset of if you're gonna play a game, why not play it, seriously and
Right.
competitively, and just kick ass at it.
And how do you think the pandemic has changed gaming? How has it changed it for you guys?
Well, I can tell how, internet wise, how, everyone's on the internet now and, there's internet problems. So that says it.
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely internet problems.
Yeah.
At least,
So you guys might have more trouble with your games because of the internet issues, right?
Yeah, because everyone's playing, and then a lot of people are just at home on the internet in general.
Where do you think this is all going? What kind of changes do you see happening to games in the near future?
I could see like oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Oh no! Well, I was just gonna say I have no idea. In the presentation, that's kind of where I was kind of with the one slide about things just being recycled and how things could, seem like everything could come to an end game. And it's like, when's the next big thing gonna come out? I feel like that's kind of what the state's at right now.
Yeah.
Of course there's VR stuff, but it's kind of still I've never used that at all, but
I know, yeah, me either.
Yeah, me either.
I feel like it's all still in the making right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's out there, like like you guys know about Meow Wolf in, where is it, New Mexico? Or do you guys know about Meow Wolf?
No.
No.
Okay.
I haven't heard of it.
Let me bring it up and then I'll share my screen. So let's see. Okay, let's see. Back to Zoom. Okay, let me share my screen here. Okay. So this is Meow Wolf. It is a company that started in Santa Fe. You can see their cool website here. You know, you roll over this and it moves this three-dimensional object, right? So 4 years ago, it started in Santa Fe. It looks like they're bringing in a new version of it called Area 15 in Las Vegas early next year, and then coming to Denver eventually. And it looks like they're temporarily closed because of the virus. But so what Meow Wolf is, it's an arts and entertainment group that's highly focused on things like technology. So, for example, you can go into an art exhibit that, you know, is virtual, and then, you know, experience, you know, interesting things there. And people who I know who have been to this really just rave about it, you know. Let's see. So this talks a little bit about all the people who are part of it. Oh, check this out. I guess that they actually, it was established in 2008 as an art collective, but they've been around for more than 10 years now, and it says they have a documentary here about Meow Wolf. So if this is of interest to you at all, you might want to check it out. It's supposed to be really amazing, and you know, like I said, it's expanded to 2 different states already beyond this, so you might want to check it out. There's also there's a virtual game playing place, I think, in Colorado. Has anybody ever heard of that one?
No.
Okay, I'll have to look that one up. But basically, it's like a giant warehouse where you put on the virtual headset and you walk around, and it's like, you know, you're playing the game, right?
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the name of it. Let's see. Virtual game space in Colorado. It has a distinct name, which of course I forgot.
Right.
Let's see. Colorado top 10 Denver VR arcade. Okay, well, I won't waste your time right now. I'll just have to look it up and present it to you next time. But anyway, so you know, people always say about VR and AR, oh, you know, I'm not really playing that. I feel like it's coming down the pipe, but really, it's been coming down the pipe for years, and it's being used. And I think it's going to be one of those cases where all of a sudden it's here. You know, like people are already doing it and they're creating things for it. And one day it's like, boom, it's going to be available to all of us, or we're all going to jump into it. If you have interest in that, you should really look into what's happening with AR and VR. I know that Apple is continually upgrading their devices to support things like AR. So you know, you can always look at sort of bellwethers like the iPhone and the mobile devices and see what they're upgrading to support as potentially the next big thing.
Right.
Okay, so let's see. I'm going to the class website here, and last week I wasn't able to do a blog post because of Labor Day, but I did do a blog post this week, and I just wanted to show it to you guys real quick, so, and you can check it out on your own. But basically, my blog post was about recycling game ideas. And so if you have an idea for a game and you write it down, you scratch it in a notebook or on a napkin or something like that, be sure and archive those ideas in some kind of filing system. So whether it's alphabetical or concept-wise or something like that, it's a really good idea. And the reason is because further down the road, when you're developing, you know, games, you might have a need for something, and you can go back to that file, and boom, there's an idea that was unused, and it can solve a problem. And so I give you an example of that. So, for example, I worked on this game called Skyrose, and inside of it, I spent a lot of time developing this complex system of movement. I thought this was going to be one of the hooks for the game. Now it's a board game, right? And so I was going to have, there was like sort of a circular area, and I was going to have people move in all these kind of crazy ways. Like you can see here from this card in the top left, each one of these little round circles here is going to be a chip that would allow you to do certain type of movements. Like you could move forward one, or you could move, counterclockwise, or you could move across, or you could move clockwise. I came up with this complex system, right? And sometimes when you're developing a game mechanic or a system or something, you go so far into it, you get so intense with it and everything that it kind of collapses under its own weight, right? It's like, that's kind of what happened with this. I developed this whole thing. It got so crazy and so out of control that I'm like, I just can't deal with this anymore. So I took the whole thing and I just put it on the back shelf. I was like, I'll just archive this, right? So, so that's what happened with that thing. That was earlier this year. And then recently, I was working on this game. It's a game called Diner Duel, and it takes place on the tabletop of a diner, a 1950s style diner. And I was like, okay, we're going to put these little plates on the diner, and what I want to have is I want people to be able to move, between these plates and everything. Now, how should I get them to move, right? And I like, boom. What about that movement system that I developed, 6 months ago that I had mothballed because it was too complex? So, then I can go back there, and instead of, now that I've had some time away from it, I can look at it and go, well, how about I take this piece and this piece, just selectively use parts of it and apply it to this new game, and boom, I'm done. It solved a problem. And what's also really cool, it's sort of a double win, because when you develop a game idea and it sort of hits a brick wall for whatever reason, it feels like kind of a loss. You're like, oh man, I screwed the pooch on that one. I spent all this time on it. It went nowhere. I'll put it in the file, right? But 6 months later, you hit a wall and you're like, I need an idea. There it is. Boom. And it's a double win. You resuscitated that old idea, and it also solved the problem and is helping your new idea. So, that's what I recommend. Artists who make a lot of drawings or who have a lot of reference material, they have a file which they call a morgue file. It's kind of a strange name, a morgue file, because it implies like dead things or whatever. But you guys might want to start your own morgue file, and very carefully, catalog your ideas so that you can come back and take advantage of them later. Okay, so you can, like I said, you can check out that blog post if you like in your own time. Let me go back to the class website. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about today is something we don't really think about a lot, unless of course it affects us, but a certain percentage of the population are colorblind. And I forget what the number is, 10%, or we could look it up, but I don't remember what the number is. But that certainly affects people who play games, whether it's board or card games or video games. And so there's an article here. Let's see. Let me just click on this, open it in a new link. So this is from a company called Panda Games, and they make a lot of board games. And yeah, it says colorblindness is estimated to affect up to 10% of the population, right? And it talks about how difficult it is for players. Like let's say that you're red, you're playing the red characters, and yet you can't really see red. Everything looks kind of like a brownish gray or whatever. It becomes difficult for you to pick the right cards and pick up your token. And of course, it's embarrassing to do that in public. So here they talk a little bit about color blindness. And they also talk about something called a color blindness simulator. So there are probably more than one color blindness simulators out there. And I used one of them to create these little slides here. So let's go to this first one here. Not found. Oh.
Yeah, that was happening to me earlier. I was trying to click on them, but I don't know if any of them work.
Oh, okay. All right, that's unfortunate. So I tell you what, Oh, I think I know why these didn't work. I think I stored them on a server that just shut down literally. It just shut down literally yesterday, because when I made these posts on, uh, earlier yesterday, everything was working. I was clicking on them. So, but that's okay, because what I can show you is I can show you the same idea, because there's something called a color blindness simulator online here, and it shows you the effect, right? So right now, what you're looking at is a bunch of, I don't know if this is wax or crayons or whatever. I guess they're the same thing, but this is what the image looks like to somebody who has, quote, normal vision, right? Now, there's 3 different categories of color blindness. That's how intense it is. So here's one, and I don't know if I should even attempt to read the name here. Anomalous trichromacy is the first category. And you can see what other people see when you click on these. So that's a red weak proto-anomaly. Here's a green weak proto-anomaly and a blue weak proto-anomaly. So in other words, you might not be able to see a certain color like blue, and then other colors stand out. Here's 3 types of color blindness in something called a dichromatic view. These are people who are red blind, so they're not seeing the red in hues, people that are green blind, and people that are blue blind. And you can see how much trouble that could create if you're blue and everything looks red, right? And then, of course, monochromatic view, these are people that see everything the same color, black and white and gray. And then this is, what they call blue cone monochromacy. So obviously, there's a lot of different flavors of color blindness, right? Now, there is a website up here called the Color Oracle, and it's free software that you can download. And there's a Mac, Windows, and a Linux version. And what happens is you can download this software and you can bring up graphics that you're doing for your games in this software, and it will show you how it will look to people with different forms of color blindness, right? So if this is something that interests you, maybe you're colorblind, or maybe you know someone is, maybe you just want to be somebody who creates games that are inclusive to all kinds of people, you can take your work, whether it be for a video game or a card game or a board game, and you can plug it into this, and it will show you how other people will perceive it, and then you can make changes, based on that, so that your game is a little more equitable, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Do you think that's a worthy goal?
Yeah, I think it's
Definitely,
pretty
like,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. So have any of you experienced color blindness, or have people who have when playing games or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I remember.
Yes.
Yeah, like it was crazy. The Modern Warfare 2, I remember that was like my friend Derek. It was like when I found out that he was colorblind, because he would go into the settings and change to the colorblind setting at my house when he would play, and I was like, whoa, I didn't even know they had that setting for Modern Warfare 2. And then, but it was even back then, I'm pretty sure, just like the colorblind setting. And now, like on like the most recent Modern Warfare, they have like all the which type of color blindness do you have? What can you see? And they have a bunch of different options. But yeah, it's just so cool to add that feature in.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that.
Oh, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
Go ahead, Coulter.
Oh, I was just gonna say I've noticed in a lot more recent games, even by smaller publishers, there's usually a lot of customization for like menu colors, especially overall, so people can tweak them. So it seems like with the like rise and kind of awareness of this stuff, there's also been a rise in customability in games for people who may have trouble seeing too. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and it makes sense because, if you're 10% of the population is kind of a lot, I mean,
Seriously.
10%,
Yeah, definitely.
10% could be the difference between profitability and not profitability on your game, because games are so expensive. Maybe 90% of the cost, goes into the game, and it's that last 10% that gives you your profit. And if those people are colorblind and you haven't accommodated them, too bad for you, right? So yeah, I think it's great that they're doing that, and it's just something you guys can be made aware of, and then consider yourselves for games that you design. So okay. Any other comments on that, on the color blindness issue?
It's a good way to keep their players in the game, even if they have like disabilities like that.
Yeah, because what are they going to do? They're going to play games that are accommodating to them, and they're going to tell their friends about it, right?
Right.
I think
Yeah,
color
exactly.
blindness is what we might call one of those sort of hidden disabilities, in that there's people with color blindness that you just never know. Like Creed, you were talking about your friend. I mean,
Right.
you know, nobody's going to volunteer that information because it seems like some form of deficiency, although it really isn't. It's just kind of the way your DNA was programmed, right?
Right.
I had a friend who, well, he was a student of mine. We became friends. He studied graphic design. He went all through college. He got his graphic design degree. He was applying to jobs, and at that point, he told me he was colorblind. And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You're a graphic designer." He's like, "No, I'm not kidding." And sometimes I have to ask people, like, you know, about color choices and like, how does this look and stuff like that. But he was able, I mean, this is crazy, but he was able to go to interviews and like get jobs, you know, all the while sort of hiding this fact. And then he had come up with systems with workarounds for it. So
Wow.
it's kind of crazy, you know, and you would think that big companies like Adobe or something, I haven't looked into this, but I wonder if they have like color blindness filters or something that you could put
Oh,
on
right.
programs like Photoshop, right?
Right.
That would be interesting to find out.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, it is like so crazy. Like I was saying, I played Modern Warfare 2 like every day, and I never even knew that they had a colorblind setting because I just didn't think about it. But then my friend Derek just went right to it immediately and just changed the setting. And it changed enemies to like a green, or friendlies to a green, enemies to a blue, or something like that, you know? But it's just, I was like, wow, I never would have thought that it would be in there.
And you know, a lot of in-game currency is spent on things like, you know, customizing characters and stuff like that, right? And
Yeah, right.
in order to spend that money, you have to be able to see what your character looks like, or they have to look good to you. So
Yeah.
what if a colorblind person is looking at their character who looks good to everybody else, but because they don't see all the colors, that character looks bad to them. They don't want to spend any more money on him. But if they can adjust the color blindness setting, now it looks good, and now they want to spend more money, right?
Right.
So, okay, so
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
one of the first games that I remember noticing the colorblind options was the 2015 Star Wars Battlefront.
Uh huh.
Um,
Oh, nice.
I had a friend over one time who had colorblindness. I didn't know that he did, but when he mentioned it when we were playing, because we were on the Endor map, you know, it's supposed to be all green and nice and all that. So he mentioned he had colorblindness and he didn't see it very green. I'm like, oh hey, let's look at the settings real quick.
Right.
Maybe there's something in here that can help you. And he went and he changed it, and he's like, wow, it looks so pretty now. And I'm like, yeah, I can't see it anymore, but I'm glad you can.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad you're having a good time.
Right, right. That's another point. Is like, you know, does the change affect the people who have quote normal vision? You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool though. It wasn't anything that bothered me too much, so I was just like, yeah, I'm glad you're having a good time now.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be, I mean, even if you have the best intentions, if you spend a lot of time on a game and you've got everything just the way you want, and then sort of in the 11th hour, you think, oh, I should check the color blindness settings. You know, if you look at that point, you're like, there's some problems, but I don't feel like changing anything, you know? So it might behoove you guys, if you're interested, to check this stuff early on in the process, you know? Now, I don't expect any of you guys that are making your games to do like, you know, completely change everything, you know, for colorblindness or whatever, but it might interest you to take some of the artwork you've created and, you know, download that software and look at how it's perceived. You know, because if possible, at the time to look at this is when you're beginning to design a game, because then you can make shifts to your color palette in such a way that it will, you know, that the game you design will end up being for those extra 10% of people, you know. Okay, cool. All right, anybody else have any other comments about that? Okay, so let me point you to an article here, another article on the website. This is an article called 10 Influential Games That Changed Modern Board Gaming. And it's pretty interesting, even if you don't play board games, you have to see that board games were the precursors to video games. And of course, many board games are video games, but it's interesting to see some of the major contributors to this field and how they change things. This one I thought was really interesting. There's a game called Little Wars. It was actually designed by H.G. Wells, the famous science fiction writer. And what he did was he pioneered the idea of a tabletop war game. It says it wasn't the first to use miniatures in a war simulation, but Wells was the first to bring the idea to the average person's table as a fun game to play. It says, from Warhammer to Squad Leader, most modern war games can give thanks to Little Wars and H.G. Wells for inspiration. Kind of amazing, right? Of course, we have Monopoly. Whether you love it or hate it, it's inescapable, right? It's definitely, if somebody says, name 3 board games, one of the first one that's going to pop up in everybody's mind is Monopoly because it's omnipresent. Now, a little later in the semester, I'm going to do a whole, lecture about just Monopoly because it's worth talking about. But, it's definitely an archetype, Monopoly. Of course, here we have Dungeons and Dragons. Let me make this page a little bigger here. Which, the original, it's sort of the granddaddy of all role-playing games. So if you play WoW, it owes a big debt to Dungeons and Dragons or anything else in the sort of role-playing game category. It was started in 1974, and actually it was started by 2 people, Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, who were war gamers. They, at the time, you could buy miniatures and you could buy gaming systems for playing war games. And of course, but the war games were all based around, the Napoleonic Wars or the Civil War or World War I or World War II. So all these sort of soldiers in uniforms kind of wars. Well, the 2 of them got together and they decided to take the rules for war games and apply them to a different period of time, to fantasy, to a fantasy period. And so they brought in, orcs and dragons and goblins and dwarves and clerics and thieves, and the rest is history. I mean, this thing has been going on since '74. It's had a resurgence lately because of things like the Stranger Things series. Any guys Stranger Things fans?
Yep.
I've watched like
Yes.
one.
Yeah, so Stranger Things kind of made D&D cool again, as well as being just an incredibly good series. And it got a lot of people into it. It's on its 5th edition right now. And it's really fun. I think it's a win-win for everybody. If you just like watching the show, you win. If it interests you in D&D, you win, the game makers win, everybody wins, right? By the way, very interesting point. There was, when Dungeons and Dragons first came out, like many things, there were, of course, the kids embraced it, the young people embraced it, but of course the parents were horrified, by the fact that people were running around in dungeons, casting satanic spells, right? And back in I think it was the 70s, the very first film I think that Tom Hanks ever starred in was a film about Dungeons and Dragons. And what it was a ridiculous film. It was about how Tom Hanks was a college student who, played a Dungeons and Dragons type game and then went insane because of the satanic aspects of the game, right? Apparently there were these tunnels underneath the college, and he went down there and was looking for orcs and casting satanic spells. And I know it's crazy. It is. But the interesting thing is, it's based on something that happened to a real kid, a real college student. But they took this story and just ran with it. And what they tried to do was they tried to put the fear of God into people, like, don't let your kids play D&D because next thing you know, satanic rituals, right?
Yeah, inevitably.
Yeah, which, it's the same argument that they pull out nowadays. Any game that you guys like to play that features any gore or violence or, any sort of sex whatsoever, you're going to read about a congressman, hoisting the executives of that game up to Washington and berating them on national television. How can you do this to our kids, right? It still happens today, and not all of you have been along as long have been around as long as I have, but you know, I wasn't around in the 50s. That's a bit too far back for me. But back in the 50s, they had something called the Comics Code, which they applied to comic books. And that all came out of the fact that when comic books first came out, they were unregulated. And so people did things like they had comics called like gruesome stories, like, you know, your Call of Cthulhu game, right?
Right.
They would have like, you know, Call of Cthulhu comics, and then they would have people whose heads were getting eaten and babies were being fed to demons, you know, fun stuff, right? For comics.
Yeah.
And
Right.
anybody that's reading it is just like getting a kick out of it or being horrified by the cool art.
Right.
But of course, this psychologist in the 1950s said that comic books were damaging the brains of young people and went to Congress, and they created something called the Comics Code Authority. And the Comics Code Authority was this stamp that they put on comics, and they wouldn't let any comics talk about sex or horror or drug use, all the good things in life, right? So, and that lasted for probably into the 60s, and I think they threw it out, you know, at some point in the 60s. But, you know, the same thing happened to video games, right? Video games used to be unregulated, and then Al Gore's wife, Tipper Gore, you know, probably 20 or 30 years ago, started this, I think it was called the PMRC. It was an organization to try to regulate video games. And basically they told the industry, you either regulate yourself or we're going to bring Congress in. And I think the industry did end up regulating themselves. And that's why you see things like, you know, age warnings and stuff like that on video
Oh,
games.
like the ESRB and stuff like
Yeah.
that?
Yep.
Okay.
ESRB. And so in other words, whenever a new medium comes out, be it, you know, comics, video games, or whatever, you know, it explores the reaches of infinity until somebody in Washington gets a hold of it, and then it's got to be tamped back down to, you know, socially acceptable, right?
Right.
Um,
Can I add something real quick?
yeah, please.
So I don't know how true this is, but back when D&D was big and people would raid games to like arrest kids or something like that, they made the D4, which is the little triangle one, and I guess they threw it on the ground to stop them. But I don't know how true that is. But if it's true, then that's fun. Put some little spikes on the ground to stop
Yeah.
all people from coming in.
That's a trap.
It's pretty fun. It's pretty funny. By the way, the D4 is like the worst die in the world. I don't know if you guys have experienced it. If you go online, you look at one of these free 3D sites like Thingiverse or whatever, people have redesigned the D4 so that the reason it sucks is because you roll a triangle and then it lands and it's kind of hard to tell what the hell it landed on. You know what I mean? You know, I mean, once you get used to it, you can figure it out. But somebody's redesigned the D4 on like Thingiverse so that it makes ergonomic sense. And it's got 4 sides now, and you can roll it and you can actually tell what it is. Okay, so a couple other, let's see, there's some comments here. Let me see if I can read them real quick. Did it happen around the same time as the Haynes Code Lavender Scare? So Coulter, I don't know the Haynes Code Lavender Scare. What was that?
Oh, like way back around the same time. I think it was may have been a little bit earlier, but film was actually quite a lot of the same way. Like it was very unregulated, and then the Haynes Code was introduced to kind of, you know, essentially figure out how the hell to rate movies. If one was too offensive to be shown to the public for various reasons. So yeah, I think it happened just about around the same time, maybe 10 years apart in difference. I don't quite remember when the Haynes Code was regulated, but yeah, it just reminded me of that, the comics book regulation stuff.
There's usually a triggering event that does this. Like,
Yeah.
you know, in the case of D&D, it was this kid who went to college and played D&D, and then he disappeared for a while. And people were worried that he was off, you know, that he was in the tunnels under the school doing satanic rituals. Or in the case of like, whenever there's a violent shooting, you know, then sometimes they'll find out that the person who did the shooting plays video games, and clearly that's the culprit, right? So usually there's a triggering event that gets people to haul the industry to Washington and get them to regulate themselves.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so we got a couple other things here, board games that sort of were historic in their impact. The Settlers of Catan. It's sometimes called the Monopoly of today. It's a German game, and it kind of introduced the world to what are sometimes called Euro games. The games in Europe have sort of a different take, different approach than American games. And Catan, if you haven't played it, is really interesting, really challenging, and it took the world by storm and became just a staple of the industry. Of course, Magic: The Gathering, right? Introduced in 1993 as one of the first collectible card games. And by the way, a trivia fact here: I went to Pima College and I went to the U of A. And art was one of many things that I studied. And in one of my art classes, there was this guy, Adam. And while he was in college, he was designing Magic: The Gathering cards and getting paid for it while he was taking art classes. I mean, the guy was,
No way.
he was off the chart good. And I said, what do you, and this was many years ago. I go like, what do you get for like a painting for, and he goes, oh, $1,000. I'm like, $1,000? This was many years ago. $1,000 would mean a lot to you guys right now. Back then you were a rich person if you got $1,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he just was spitting out these paintings for Magic: The Gathering. And like I said, Adam was excruciatingly talented. He went on to develop children's books that became New York Times bestsellers. So he's ridiculously talented at a young age. But it was interesting to see that. Anyway, the guy who's writing this article says something funny. He says that he played Magic: The Gathering in college, and then he thought, well, it's a passing phase. I'm going to sell my cards. And of course, it's going even stronger today than when it started. So those cards would have been worth a lot. Here we go. Call of Cthulhu. Designed by Sandy Peterson, it's now in the 7th edition. It really introduced a lot of people to the Lovecraft mythos, and for players looking to break out of the fantasy genre, Call of Cthulhu fit the bill perfectly. And so, it sort of spawned this whole field of games, it brought that mythos of H.P. Lovecraft to mainstream. So very, very cool game. Okay, there's another one here, Dominion. Any of you guys ever played Dominion? It's a card game.
No.
Okay, so in 2008, the people, I guess Donald Vaccarino created the game, and it was one of the first deck building games. And it's based around the concept of building your deck as the game progresses, right? So you build characters, you build weapons, things like that. And it wasn't really seen in games outside of Magic: The Gathering. And it says in Magic, all the deck building takes place before the game even started, where Dominion, you're actually building the deck as you're playing the game. And it says it's already had a dozen expansions released. Of course, it was first started 12 years ago, so that makes sense. Even an expansion a year would fit that bill. But I just bought this game recently. I bought one of the more recent versions, and it's incredible. Okay, get this. There are 500 cards in the game that I bought. 500 cards. That's a ridiculous number. Now, of course, a lot of them are duplicates. You'll have like 5 clerics or 5 of this one town that you can go to.
Right.
But still, and the artwork is interesting, and it's very cool system. So now another game that was sort of a game changer, if you will, was something called Risk Legacy. So we all know, I assume, what Risk is, the conquer the world kind of board game. It says the board game Risk has been around in various iterations since the 1950s. That's a long time. That's 70 years, right? However, in 2011, designer Rob DeVoe put his own spin on the game, the decades-old game. Rob introduced us the Legacy style game, which had players tearing up cards, writing on the board, and opening sealed containers throughout the campaign. While the thought of destroying game components can give the average gamer the chills, there is no denying what a unique game Risk Legacy was. Legacy-style games have been more prevalent in recent years. Seafall, Gloomhaven, Pandemic, Legacy. And they can all give their thanks to Risk Legacy for paving the way. So what happened was this designer looked at the rules that you don't break for board games, which is you don't mess with the pieces, you don't damage the cards, you don't affect the board, right? And he broke all the rules. And he's like, yeah, let's have them right on the board. Yeah, we can have them tear up cards. We can get them new ones. In fact, it's a brilliant idea. Have them tear up the whole set and buy a new one, right?
Yeah.
Give them sealed containers, which they can obviously only open once. It's brilliant. And the doors that it opens for expansions and things. Okay, then we have this one here. Let's see. I'm just trying to read the notes here. It says, did it happen? Okay. So XCOM, the board game. As technology becomes more and more ubiquitous in our lives, it's only natural that it begins to creep into our tabletop games. While not the first game to use technology in it, what XCOM, the board game, did was bring us a game that worked fully with an integrated app. Okay. So, some kind of app that you'd have on your mobile device. The app in XCOM decided what the aliens did, threw curveballs at the players, and even acted as a timer to keep them on their feet. While there was a good amount of pushback at the time, today most gamers have embraced integrated apps, with games such as Mansions of Madness and Detective, a modern crime board game, all using an integrated app to enhance the gaming experience. So, nowadays, I don't think any of us would blink twice if somebody brought home a board game and there was a little QR code on the board game to download the app that went with it, and it enhanced the experience, or maybe it was a key part of the experience. But back then, it was, a groundbreaking way to do a game. And then the number 10 here, Zombicide. So it says, this one might be a surprise, as the game itself wasn't all that revolutionary, although it was pretty fun. However, what Zombicide did do was to help launch the Kickstarter revolution. And I assume you guys all know what Kickstarter is, the crowdfunding site where you can, fund games or movies or whatever project you want to create. It said, while games had been funding on Kickstarter for a while, well before Zombicide, this was one of the very first games to debut at the $100 price point. Who would pay $100 for a board game, right? Who would pay $60 for a video game, right? Let's see, not only that, but it also brought us a massive amount of stretch goals that threw piles of extras at the player for no additional cost. It's hard to believe that there was a time when pledging $100 for a board game, possibly years in advance, was unheard of. I remember seeing the campaign at the time and thinking it was way too pricey for a game. Again, I was proven wrong. Today, it's all too common for a minis game to have a $100 pledge level or even higher, and publishers can thank Zombicide for breaking the ground on that front, right? Now, I'll give you an example of this. So $100 is still a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, things cost a lot of money nowadays, but, as students and teachers, we don't, we're clearly not in the business of being rich right now, right?
Yeah.
So $100 means something to everybody. Now, if somebody said, hey, this brand new video game is out, one that you've been waiting for a couple of years, you would find a way to get your $100 and spend it on. Or maybe you get a $60 game and get some add-ons or, whatever, and it ends up being $100. But, for board games, this was a big deal. But recently, and like I said, $100 is still a lot of money for me, but recently I paid $120 for a board game on Kickstarter. And I want to show it to you guys because I think you might understand why. And I think this is also sort of a good lesson in ways to sort of, motivate your audience to spend more money. So I'm going to Kickstarter here, and we all, Kickstarter, of course, is the great place to start up projects that you want to get funded. We'll go over here to games. And, of course, they're always going to feature some really cool games on the front page here. And so, and it's a variety of games, everything from card games to video games and stuff like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for this game that I sponsored. And let's see. And I'll show you what it is and how I got to $100. Okay. Now I also have to. I know yours like, or actually I spent $120, but uh, I know you guys think, oh, this guy, I can't believe he throws $120 away at the drop of a hat. Well, let me start out by saying this. When I bought the game, it was $60, right? So let's see what it is about this game that got me to $100. Okay. So first of all, let's look at the little video for the game and see if maybe you guys, if you had the money, might spend $60 on it. Okay, so this is the game. It's called Catapult Kingdoms, right? Now, it looks like a game that might be made for, younger kids or whatever, but of course adults can enjoy it too. Now, when I first saw this, there was this pledge right here, pledge. Well, actually, for $35, this is what's so cool about Kickstarter, and this is what you guys will learn if you haven't funded very many Kickstarters. But what they have is they start you off, it's almost like a drug pusher or something, right? They're like, here's some free candy. Come back every time this week, I'll give you free candy. And then 1 week you come back and they're like, oh, it's not free anymore. And you're like, oh, I'm addicted. Give me, how much? $50. Okay. So they start off with this $35 level, right? And for $35, you can get what's called a basic game, which is, you've got basically you have like a catapult, and you have these little plastic kingdoms you can build in these cool little plastic figures, and you can shoot each other, right? You can shoot each other's castles. That sounds fun. $35, great, right? That's what I wanted to get. But then, right after they tell you about the $35 version, they introduce you to the $60 version, right? It's almost like a waiter at a table who intentionally sits you right next to the people that are getting the New York sirloin strip and the brand new sea bass that just was flown in from Alaska. And they sit you at your table and they say, we're having a special, for $15, you can get a nice salad. And you're like, oh, a nice salad, $15, that sounds like a good deal. But they intentionally sit you right next to the people that are eating the deluxe meal that costs $75. And then you're like, what are they having, right? So as soon as they show me the Catapult Kingdom that has me shooting little castles, then they show me the $60 version. And look at the $60 version. This one, you get multiple catapults, you get a bunch more bricks, you get more miniatures, you get a bunch of cards. This is like your dream edition. That other edition was shit. You can't even think about getting that $35 version because the deluxe edition is $65, right? Or $60, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking to my girlfriend. I'm like, I want to get the $35 one because I just want to get the game. And she's like, look at the $60 one. Look at all this stuff. You got to get this. You got to get this, right? I'm like, $60. She's like, shut up, get it, right? So I'm like, okay, fine, So, but then they even further tempt you, right? So they say, okay, you can buy the $60 version, but check this out. We have these things called stretch goals, right? This is all about how the game works. These are the different weapons you can use to send catapults. This is a 3D rendering, showing the catapults destroying things. So then what happens is they say, look, if we make enough money on this game, we're going to add these stretch goals. And the stretch goals include these cool new cards, new rubber boulders. We're going to put in more bricks and more characters, and we're going to give you these little game boards that help you extend the gameplay, right? You're like, oh my gosh, and then they go further and they say, we've introduced a brand new weapon shooter, the ballista, right? And here's some cool new characters that we'll introduce if we hit, $100,000, right? And then look, we made new bricks so you can make cool, new structures, right? And then here's another expansion with a whole nother weapon and more bricks, right? And so you can see what it is. It's kind of like, it's like my mother went on a cruise ship, and on a cruise ship, I've never been on one, but apparently, they try to get you to eat yourself to death on a cruise ship, right? And what happens is at the end of a meal, they bring around a cart full of desserts, and all the desserts are free, right? And so it's not like you have to pick the cheesecake or the carrot cake. It's like, I'll take both, right? So look at the stretch goals, right? So if they made 20,000, they were going to unlock more cards, more bricks, right? But as you get up through these numbers, as they get higher, they start introducing all these cool bricks, cool cards. They bring in a new weapon at 200 grand, more cards and bricks, right? And 300 grand, they bring in new characters and so on and so forth, right? Now, I'll just finish the list here. So at a certain point, they introduced a volcano. Let me see if I can get down to that. Here's another character. Yeah, I don't know where the volcano is, but anyway, well, there's the volcano right there. But anyway, so what happened was, here I am. I wanted to spend 35, just get a little game. My girlfriend talks me into the 60. They start doing these stretch goals, and they're like, we have all these stretch goals. We have a volcano. We have extra pieces, blah, blah, blah. And if you just add another $60 on the original $60 purchase, right? Remember, I wanted to spend 35. So now we're at like 4 times what I originally spent. If you just double what you're paying us, which is already twice what you wanted to pay, you can get the majority of the stretch goals. So I look at my girlfriend. She's like, "You have to do it. You have to do it. We need that volcano. We need all that
The
stuff."
volcano expansion. You can't say no
Exactly.
to the volcano expansion.
So next thing I
Volcano,
know,
who doesn't want
next thing I know, I'm putting in $120 on my credit card to Kickstarter. Right now, when you add in the shipping costs and everything, that's probably another $20. So before I knew it, I'm spending $150 on a game that's not going to come out till next year, right? And so I'm just trying to illustrate the point of what this guy was saying in the article, which is it's really easy to get tempted into doing this. And then if you guys are on the other side of this, if you guys are creating games, this is exactly the method you want to use to lure people in. You show them something cool, you make it at a really affordable price point, and then you make it so for just $20 more, they get the deluxe version, and then you just absolutely drown them in what are called stretch goals, which are extra things you'll provide if the game sells, X quantity. And before you know it, you got them doubling and tripling their purchase. Now, I know it's ridiculous. This game made $500,000.
I know. I thought I saw that.
Yeah, $500,000 from almost 6,000 people, right? And it's a reputable company. It's a company out of Canada that's made games before and stuff. So, I don't like the fact that I spent $120. I don't like talking about it. I feel like, oh my God, I have an addiction. But when this game comes in, I can prove everybody wrong because I can be like, look at this, the coolest game ever. But
I got the volcano.
yeah, it's just proof of the point. Now, have any of you guys had any experiences like this? Or am I the only one?
Bones Miniatures had a Kickstarter recently.
You bought some miniatures?
Yeah.
And did you get sucked into the higher bracket as well?
Well, they had a pirate ship for $100.
Did you have to get it?
Yeah. It's a pirate ship. So the base core expansion is $120.
Right.
And it comes with like 80 or so miniatures.
Wow.
But then they have extra expansions. Like they had a Greek Odyssey expansion. They had a underwater miniatures expansion. And then they also have like individual ones. Like they had a war mammoth or dragon models. And then obviously they had the pirate ship for $100. So
yeah, I hear you, man. I mean, I had to get the volcano. There was no way about it. Yeah, and so, the basic rule of thumb is this. People love, especially gamers, they love cool games. They love cool miniatures. They love anything that scratches their itch. And if you can really deliver, if you can really give them cool stuff, they will find a way to pay for it. And so it's not a question of if you can be successful. It's a question of how. Like what is it that you love? How can you make it and share it with other people so that they will buy it and love it too. And then how can you add on to that to make these expansions to sell even more of it? And you're not ripping people off. You know, Brit is gonna love his pirate ship when it comes in, you know. And you know, maybe it hurts to spend that $100. Maybe he didn't get to eat this weekend, right? But you know, but he gets a pirate ship. I had a friend, I went to school with a friend who was in love with CDs. This was back when everybody was buying CDs. And he would literally, he would get his paycheck and he would not eat for a day or two so he could go out and buy like, you know, 12 CDs from the record store. I mean, he was like music nutcase. So
Dedication.
yeah, it happens.
That's
And by the
very
way, interesting fact, vinyl records for the first time in 34 years outsold CDs this year. So the resurgence of vinyl, you know, warm audio in a vinyl format has come back so strong that it actually spanked CDs, which of course you guys aren't buying anyway because you're streaming things. But it's very interesting.
Yeah, I have my girlfriend and I collect records, so that's pretty sick to know.
Yeah, have you heard of this thing, this documentary called Vinyl Nation?
No, a
Okay.
documentary you said?
Yeah. Well, it's more than just a documentary. It's actually like kind of a whole movement.
Oh, nice.
They have like a whole like group you can join and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah. So Vinyl Nation is a little off the topic, but I'm sure it's all related somewhere. Vinyl Nation is a documentary that I actually streamed online, and you can do it too. And it's all about the love of vinyl and how it has come back, you know, with a vengeance from almost disappearing. And not only did they put out a documentary, you know, where they filmed all these people talking about making records and selling records and stuff like that, but they started a movement that you can join and you can become part of the resurgence of vinyl. You know, you can go to events, you can buy records, you can watch more movies about it and stuff. So it's a really cool way to use social media to you know, to sort of bring a cause to the forefront.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just, I mean, it's like, I mean, with COVID and everything, it's such a bummer because I used to love to like go down to Zia Records, you know.
I know what you
Sucks to
mean.
not be able, yeah.
And there's something about, you know, of course, Zia Records will have all the formats. You know, they'll have vinyl and CDs and even some cassettes probably. But there's really something about going to a record bin. If you guys haven't experienced it, because records are that big, you know, 12-inch square of artwork and information, there's something about like just, you know, going through the record bin and picking up records and looking at them that's very satisfying. And it's even really cool to buy a record for somebody you've never heard of before. And it's kind of like mystery meat. You know what I mean? You take it home and maybe, you know, maybe 7-8 times out of 10, it's a piece of junk, you know, but that 10th time, that 10th time, it's life changing. You know, it's a new artist who's always going to be on your playlist or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So one last thing I want to talk about here, and then I want to give you guys some time talk about your games and stuff. There's a game here. It's a card game, and it is called Gloom. And let me see if I can hold this up to the camera effectively. So this is the card game. It's called Gloom. And I wanted to introduce it to you guys because it's so clever. I can go ahead and bring it up on Amazon so we can see, you know, what it looks like from a graphic perspective. Let's see. Gloom. My computer's like super slow. Gloom. Okay. Here it is. Let's look at the second edition. Okay, so this is a card game. It's called Gloom. Notice the price point is $20, right? Now, $20 is an amazing price point for anything, you know, a t-shirt, a game, whatever, because it's just kind of a round number, right? People are like, yeah, I got 20, I got an extra 20, I got a tip, I got a bonus, whatever. I'll spend the $20 on this. And of course, if you're buying it on Amazon, you don't even have to worry about shipping, right? And normally when there's not a pandemic going on, you can get it in a day or two, right? Now this game Gloom has really cool artwork. You can see it's sort of Edward Gorey style of artwork. Are any of you guys familiar with Edward Gorey?
No.
Okay. Let me see if I can bring up Edward Gorey's artwork. Edward Gorey artwork. So Edward Gorey is an artist who's really famous for these black and white drawings that kind of show, you know, sort of scary and horrible things happening, like this scary guy right here, the scary skeleton guy. But his artwork is so appealing that you're like, oh, I don't mind looking at these scary images because this sort of scratcher board quality is so interesting and cool, right?
Yeah.
So this is Edward Gorey. He's famous for this kind of artwork, right?
So cool.
Well, anyway, Gloom, the game, has taken this type of artwork. You know, they've updated it a little, the style a little, and they have this sort of Addams Family type of, you know, creepy looking family on here. And it's called the game of inauspicious incidents and grave consequences, right? And so here's some of the cards. Here's a card that kind of explains what's happening with the game, and there's more cards, right? Now, what's so cool about this game, there's two things that are really cool about this game. You know, there's the whole artwork and the, you know, the style that they're using. It's very appealing to people who like this kind of dark, gloomy type of work, right? But the other things that are really cool about it, in the art category, what's really cool is that they use these things, they use these transparent cards right here. And I've got some here. Let me see if I can hold them up and if you guys can see them. So they're cards that are actually printed on a sort of transparent plastic. So here's a card and you can kind of see me through it, right? It's printed on transparent plastic, so you can stack one card on top of another and you can see little icons and stuff like that, which is very cool. It's an incredibly clever trick, right? So it becomes a hook. So this game has three main hooks, right? The first is the cover artwork, which is very appealing to people who like this kind of dark, humorous stuff. The second are these really clever transparent cards which stack on top of each other. Now the third happens to be in the game mechanics. Those first two that I mentioned happen to be in the aesthetics, right? There's a couple other hooks that happen in both the mechanics and the dynamics, right? So in the mechanics, what's really interesting about this game is the way you win this game is to become the most unhappy you could possibly be, right? Sort of the opposite of what you're trying to do in a game. So in other words, this game features 4 different families, and which means up to 4 people can play. And each family has little characters. I'm sure you guys can't even really see this. I'll show you here in the cards. Let's see. Each family has little characters, like you can see a little character here. And it's kind of like a series of unfortunate events. You get your family and you put your family's cards down on the table. And what happens is you pick cards and each card tells you about a certain type of event that's going to happen. Half the cards are horrible, like, you know, you just got your leg run over and it has to be amputated, or a raven landed on your head and pecked out your eye, right? Half the cards are horrible, and a few of them are really good, like you inherited a fortune and now you don't have to worry about money anymore. Now the mechanic of this game is that you have to make your family as miserable as possible. So you have to play cards on your family that absolutely put them in the dumpster, up into and including killing them, right? And you have to take your opponents and you have to play the happy cards on your opponents. So with your opponents, you're trying to increase their happiness level to as high as it can be, and you're trying to gloom out your family to the most morbid they can be. And basically whoever has the most, you know, gloom points wins the game, right? Whoever has just completely obliterated their family. Okay, so we got cool art, which is aesthetics, you know, hooks like the Edward Gorey art and the transparent cards. We have a cool mechanic, which is you win by losing, right? You win by being the most miserable creature. And then we have a cool dynamic. Now remember, dynamic is what happens when you put the rules of a game into play. one of the things that's required about this game is when you get a card and you play it, either on your character or an opposing character, you have to tell a story. You have to make up a story on the spot about what happened, right? So if you pick up a card that says something like, little Cindy Lou got her eyeball pecked out at school, you have to put that down and you have to tell a story about what happened that day and why she was in that part of the playground and why the bird decided to peck her eye out, right? Which becomes really fun and creative for the player, and then really amusing for the contestants, right? So this is an incredible game, and then it's got those three, pillars: mechanics, aesthetics, and dynamics, all covered, right? And you can see that it's in its second edition, so it's probably been very successful. It's got 4.5 stars rating, and it's $20, which is a ludicrous, great, perfect price with free shipping. It's what we like to call a no-brainer, right? You hear about this game, you either want to get it for yourself or it's your girlfriend's birthday and she might like something like this because she likes weird, scary things, and $20 is nothing. And you next thing you put in your credit card, next thing you know, it shows up at your door. It's the most mindless purchase ever, and that's how you make a successful game, right?
There used to be there used to be a game. It was called Redikai, and it was kind of a Pokemon card game, but the cards were transparent like these, and they were holographic. So when you moved them, it showed like a 3D image.
Wow.
The way you played is you stacked to attack. You'd start off with a character, and then you'd put a monster card down on the character to like transform them. Then you'd throw down attacks, and depending on how much power the monster had, that's how much the attacks cost. And it was a really cool game, but it died out a little after it was taken off. I had a bunch of tins and stuff of just the cards, and I can't remember for the life of me what happened to them. But it was a cool game. If you look it up, you can probably still find some.
Yeah, can you spell it in the chat for me?
Maybe. Let me see if I can spell it.
Yeah, or track it down on the internet or something and spell it. That sounds really cool, and I'm really glad you mentioned that. Because obviously there's so many games out there that, you don't want to resort to cheapness or whatever, but if you have any kind of hook that can bring people in, that's amazing, right? Here's another game that is basically took the world by storm. Some of you may have played it. Have any of you ever played Exploding Kittens?
I saw that at Walmart.
Okay. I think I landed on the party pack here. What I really want is just a single game. So Exploding Kittens, once again, the perfect price point, $20, 4.5 stars. And look at this number here, 33,000 ratings. Wow. 33,000. That's like bigger than small towns, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, Exploding Kittens was it was a collaboration between this guy. Do any of you guys read The Oatmeal? The website, The Oatmeal?
Yeah.
Okay. So The Oatmeal is created by an artist named Matthew Inman. And for 10 years now, more than 10 years, he's been putting up these funny, ridiculous drawings and telling really funny stories, that he's turned into books and stuff. Like there's a book called How You Know If Your Cat Is Plotting to Kill You. Let's see if I can find this book. Let's see. Okay, here we go. This one came out a number of years ago. It was the #1 bestseller on the New York Times. Here's one called How to Punch a Dolphin in the Mouth. So he has these ridiculous concepts with this sort of childish art. I don't know why. I guess I got to go to one of these sites to buy this book. Let's see, $10 for the paperback of this book, or you can get a Kindle version for $9, right? Anyway, so Matthew Inman spent 10 years building up this website, The Oatmeal, and he's got a huge legion of fans that read his comics, that buy his books, that download his artwork as posters and stuff like that. Well, anyway, he was talking to two friends of his who invented a card game, and for this card game, they just took, they took index, like these kind of cards, like note cards, right? And they had a game, they called it something like Time Bomb or something like that. And all they did was on these cards, they wrote all of these different things that you can use to defuse a bomb. And then they had 4 cards that were actual bombs, right? And what happened was, you play with a group of up to 4 people and you pick up cards. And every time you pick up a card, you're that much closer to getting a bomb, right? Because it's kind of like, a countdown, right? And some of the cards you have will defuse bombs if you pick them up, and others will do things like, terrorize the opponents and things like that, allow you to take cards from them. Anyway, so Matthew Inman played this card game with his 2 friends, the Time Bomb game, and loved it, right? It was just so much fun to play. And he said to them, listen, I have a proposal to you. I want to work on this game with you, but I have 2 conditions. 1, I get to do all the artwork, and 2, we need to name it Exploding Kittens, right? And because that'll bring in all the nutcases on the internet, right? And so they did that, and just look at this crazy artwork. Let's see if I can get it big for you guys to look at. So, like, here is his insane artwork. Like, if you do kitty yoga, you can defuse a bomb. If you can use catnip sandwiches to defuse a bomb. You can defuse the kitty bomb with a laser pointer, right? So instead of time bombs, they're exploding kittens, right? Anyway, they made this game. They put it up on Kickstarter. It became not just the #1 game. It became one of the biggest Kickstarter launches ever, right? This game, you guys are going to blink when I tell you this number. This game made $8 million on Kickstarter. $8 million, right?
Oh my God. Wow.
It's
It's
insane.
so successful, but that's
Right? Yeah. So anyway, not only did they sell the game, they actually started a game company based on the amount of money they made, and now they have a whole series of games. So like if we go to like Exploding Kittens, I think it's called explodingkittens.com. Yeah. So look at this, $8.7 million. So round up to $9 million on Kickstarter, right? So they made the Exploding Kittens game. Then they started making expansions. They made a not safe for work version. They just have a brand new game called Poetry for Neanderthals. And then if we look at all products here, you can see some of the other games they created. There's one called Throw Burrito, where you throw these sort of soft pillow burritos at each other. There's one, let's see, Bears versus Babies, right? Where you have these vicious bears with claws fighting babies. So it's all this kind of jokesy, fun stuff. Here's a game called You've Got Crabs. And what happens is, yeah, I know, it sounds fun, right? Now you play the card game, and of course the person who gets crabs loses, right? But it also includes these giant crab claws that you have to wear on your hand if you're the person who gets crabs, right? So let me just show you this video. It's well worth seeing. It's a 2-minute long video that explains how Exploding Kittens works. Now, the purpose of this video should be to make you want to get the game, right? If you watch this video and you go to Amazon and you see the game is $20 and that you'll get it tomorrow, I think it absolutely sells you on the game. So let's watch this little video.
Hi there, my name is Matthew Inman. I make the oatmeal, and this is Elon Lee and Shane Small. They make really cool games. The 3 of us got together and created a new card game called Exploding Kittens. Here's how the game works. You set our deck of cards face down and take turns drawing until one of you draws the Exploding Kitten card. Whoever draws the Exploding Kitten card explodes, they are dead, and they are out of the game. Unless that player has the Defuse card, which can defuse the kittens using things like laser pointers, kitten therapy, and catnip sandwiches. In addition, there are various action cards which can be used to to mitigate or avoid the kittens throughout the game, such as skipping your turn by wearing a portable cheetah butt, attacking other players by deploying 1,000 in your back hair, picking a card from the draw pile by rubbing the belly of a pigacorn, or seeking out the wisdom of an all-seeing goat wizard. You can also deploy the Taco Cat, Abercrab Lincoln, magical meat bikinis, and a fearsome caterwaukie. To win this highly strategic, kitty-powered version of Russian roulette, you have to decide which cards to play, when to play them, and which of your opponents to target. The gameplay allows you to develop fun or cruel strategies against one another. The game is kid-friendly, super fun, and super easy to learn. But that doesn't mean exploding kittens is simple. With every card you draw, you increase your chances of getting one of the exploding kittens and being excluded from the game. The longer you play, the greater your odds of exploding and the more chance the game gets. So, if you're the type of person who's into games, kittens, laser beams, Sasquatches, explosions, enchiladas, and sometimes goats, please try our game. Thank you very much.
That was beautiful.
What do you think? Is this a
Yeah,
game
seriously.
Yeah.
they sold you on it, Creed?
Oh yeah, they sold me on it, man. Sold me so much, I already got it.
Oh yeah.
I already
I think our
ordered it.
family owns it too.
Good man. Good man.
I need this now.
I did. It's so good.
Yeah. So anyway, by the way, they have an app too. If you're interested, I think it's very inexpensive, like $1.99. And I downloaded that. It's pretty fun to play. I have the game myself. Okay, so let me check in with you guys. How's it going on your games? Creed, how's your team doing?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, I was just been working on implementing that new rule about having it at the end game give the players an opportunity to turn on each other. So I've been kind of trying to work out how that's going to work with even just like how the turns are going to go and everything. So yeah, it's going well.
Okay, cool. And how about from some of the other teams or solo developers? How are you guys doing? The cone of silence has fallen.
I know, right?
Yeah. Somebody want to talk about their any progress, or even if you guys are just still the same place you were, but just working on stuff?
Well, I'm on Creed's team, and I wanted to talk about the cover art that I was trying to make. I can't show you because for some reason I need to. It doesn't let me download Zoom on the other computer, so I can't share it. But essentially, what it looks like, it's like one of the, I forgot who said this, but we had the cover art for it where I had Cthulhu in his hands and then the title of it. I was like thinking of making it a half thing where one side is Cthulhu and one side is like robotic, since the main plot of it is that we're the Cthulhu are basically their players and then the robots are like the enemies. So I was thinking of just doing it like that as a cover art.
Oh, that sounds cool. I know you're gonna get your computer barcoded or whatever. When you talk to those IT people, they can actually make it so that they can help you download and install programs on your computer. So they could actually help you get Zoom on that computer. So maybe
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, talk to them, see if they can help you with that. Yeah. So okay, cool. Thanks, Eduardo. And let's see, anybody else? How are you? The rest of you guys doing on your games?
I know for my team, we're in about the same place as we were last time. We just need to really like the main thing is trying to figure out how to like make unique card backs for our stuff. But yeah, we're about in the same place. But we've gotten some good work done so far, so it shouldn't be too hard to get the assignment in.
Okay. What about let's see. I don't think Jazz is here today. Is anybody on Jazz's team here? Nick, are you on Jazz's team?
Yes.
And what's happening with your game?
I'm making some little paper cards in real life and going to be playing, basically just playing against myself to see how they work, interact with each other and stuff.
And then sort of reporting that to your team?
Well, can you say that again?
So you're going to be gathering that information, then sharing it with your team about how the game plays.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. What about any of you solo developers that are working on your own games? Any of you guys have any reports?
Just at the same spot as last time.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. Well, I tell you what, why don't you guys, right after the class is probably a good time for you guys to connect and get on Discord and make plans and work together and stuff like that. Remember, we set this deadline that's coming up to have a prototype of your game, a playable prototype that you could put in something like Tabletop Simulator so we can check it out. And, it doesn't have to be finished artwork. It can be, like you said, paper cards or whatever digital version of paper cards are. But you guys need to work towards this deadline to get this stuff created. So why don't you guys, hop on Discord, connect with your team, and see what you guys can figure out right now about your games. Okay? All right. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to end the class. And then, the understanding is that you guys will get on Discord and start connecting and talk about your game. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. You guys have a great night. Good luck with working on your games, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Yep. See you Wednesday.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Stay safe.